Today is International Women's Day, and we're getting under the hood with Amy Danielson Paul, a daughter, sister, friend, and women's advocate, passionate leader in the nonprofit sector, and the Executive Director of Sistergood, with a mission to help change the world by building sister leaders and sisterhoods everywhere. With a commitment to making social impact, she brings visionary leadership, strategic development, and a creative approach to building thriving communities. Prior to that, Amy founded Genesis Sarajevo, serving as its artistic director for 11 successful years in Sarajevo. Through this organization, she led transformative initiatives that fostered creativity, community, and impact. Wow. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. Hi, nice to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited. It's International Women's Day, and it's a time of celebration, of acknowledging women who are making history, and you've been doing an amazing job with that. So I'd love to get going if that's okay with you.
Absolutely, and thank you.
Well, I'm really excited because this is about your journey, and clearly there must have been an inflection point that occurred that got you on the journey into the nonprofit sector. What was that, Amy?
That happened back in 2005. I was living in Los Angeles and kind of feeling a little bit of a lull in life. I remember, just nothing was really bad, but nothing was really great. It felt like I was maybe at a plateau, and I was in a good relationship. I was working, but it was life was just okay. And I wanted more, and I was ready to dig deep. And so I went online and found an organization that had been doing work since the 90s in Bosnia, Herzegovina, and Croatia. And this program was for the children that had been affected by the war in the 90s, and would bring the children from Croatia, Bosnia, and Serbia together to bridge the tensions and to provide basically like a kids camp at that time, bring some relief to their lives during the post-conflict time of the war. So, or the post after the war. So, the year that I went, it was being held in the Balkans, right outside of Sarajevo, about 20 minutes away. Prior to this, it was being held down on the islands in Croatia. So I went to Sarajevo in 2005. It was a 2-week children's camp that I volunteered for, and it was everything from arts to movement to athletics. And I, of course, was in the dance and the arts side of things. And so that trip really made the biggest difference in my life. I arrived and I fell in love with the country. I felt it right away. It's a gem of a place in the world. And I call it my soul country now because it's just a very soulful place for me. So, at the end of that 2 weeks, I had this idea, this vision, and I thought, what about starting a dance program here? And so I spoke to the founder of that NGO. He ran a therapeutic horseback riding facility, and he's actually from France, and he loved the idea. And so we started the conversation around what would this look like? What would a dance program in the Balkans look like? And so from there, I started to create the vision. And the following summer, I went back 2006 for the first dance intensive.
Oh, that's wonderful. And you know what I realized? That we really didn't mention the past that you are a dancer by trade, that you've done all sorts of choreography, that you have taught it, that because bringing that creativity and that movement into this space is just so meaningful. So talk a little bit about that creativity and then also as it relates to setting up your nonprofit and what the next year looked like.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm a dancer. I started dancing when I was 9. I went to college. I have a 4-year degree from Oklahoma City University, which they have a fantastic dance and musical theater program there. And movement is so healing, and I know I have found a lot of healing through movement, and that's what one of the kind of incredible parts of this program was that we were moving, which was providing healing for everyone that was involved. So I went to college for dance, and it gave me a great understanding of how to organize, how to structure a company, and that paired with the creativity side, it just made a lot of sense when I had this vision to move forward with it because I felt very well prepared with what I learned in those 4 years in school of being part of a dance company, but also learning the business and management side of running a non-for-profit or an arts organization of any sort. So that I felt very inspired to coming with that. I felt very prepared for it and started to just map out what would be ideal, and living in Los Angeles, I wasn't really ready to make the move to Sarajevo at that time. So it was working my schedule around the children's schedule. So every summer and every winter when they had their time off from school. So we would do anywhere from a week to 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks of an intensive, and then we would do a performance after. And those performances grew to be inside of different theaters. We've toured, we've brought them to the US. I really did treat it, even though they were youth, mostly from 9 years old to 18. I did work with some young adults at one point too. And yeah, but I really treated it as a professional dance company. And so they really gained so many other skills other than dance. My goal was not for them to all become dancers, but to allow for them to become a fuller person with all the skills that they would learn being a dancer and being in a creative environment that also had discipline and freedom of expression. So that first year, I brought one huge suitcase of tap shoes and ballet shoes and some very simple t-shirts and as a costume, quote unquote costume. But this grew into every year I was bringing suitcases of costumes and shoes and getting donations of costumes from studios and dancers who, could no longer use those items. So that's really where it began, and it grew into so much more over those 11 years.
Wow, that's so beautiful just to hear the story. And of course, you've introduced us to Zulejo, who is a phenomenal dancer. You must have met her when she was a child, and we interviewed her. Beautiful dancer. But to give them the life skills and to give them those other skills, and I think it's just such a brilliant thing. You were building community using dance as your enabler or as the tool, the mechanism, if you will, to do that. So, I mean, that's just wonderful. And I think it's interesting because often you see young women, they're doing all this training, the ballet, whatever, and they're working so hard. And you see it as so regimented, or one can see it as so regimented. But the other side of it is movement just as a healing, a form of healing. And I think that's beautiful. And so as you've moved on from there, you've of course done a lot of things, but let's take you on the journey into Sistergood. Like, what got you interested in being part of this company, and tell us what you're thinking about.
Yeah, again, I think it was another very organic process of coming into Sistergood, and the idea of bringing Sistergood to life is that, I met you very organically, and we started to work, with Under the Sisterhood, and then through our conversations of, well, how else can we reach more and more women? And every woman deserves to have access to the tools and education for living a healthy life. And so how do we reach the women that might be living in areas that have limited resources still? And how can we make this education more accessible to them? And so I felt very inspired by seeing how we could create, what does this look like? And I think it's just unfolded in such an organic way, where we're working with women in Pakistan, and moved to women in Ghana, and now we have women in Liberia. And um, I would say the vision started off, we wanted to build something that would help women understand who they are, and to tap into their strengths, and to tap into their self-expression at whatever point in life. We've been speaking to young girls, 16 to 20 years old on up through women, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, who there's always something else to learn about ourselves, and, where we can grow. But giving them a way to tap into the deeper parts of themselves and understand what they want in life and how to take care of themselves because women need to take care of themselves. You know, they're the caretakers and play many roles in the world. And so it's really important that women are taking care of their heart, their mind, their body, their souls to be in their fullest form. And so I think what we have come into has just been a very natural way of finding the communities. We've had people introduce us to communities, but then going into those communities and asking the question, what do you need? And that's a question that I think every woman needs to hear. What do you need? And have somebody to hear the answer. So that's what we've done. We're answering the needs of women's voices.
I love that. I'm sitting here in goosebumps because I've been in these rooms with you. And so, what I want to do now is talk a little bit about some of the details. I want to first talk about one of the things I had this personal journey. We set up these four pillars. And I think, you wrote out the programming. We built this incredible programming of which you designed under these four pillars, which spoke to self-discovery, self-care, self-expression and sisterhood. I want to talk to you about, because I think that while we can speak overarchingly, as you go into each of those pillars, what has the experience been like? And tap in a little, like, don't you, if you could share more than the programming, but what you're seeing in the rooms connected to the programming, that would be wonderful to share with our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we started with the first group in Pakistan, the girls were 16 to 20. They were in school or about to go to university. And so they were in a very fluid, flexible place in their life, exploring. They're curious, they're open-minded to what the world is, what they're going out, stepping into the world to become and who they want to be. And so we were really a part of helping them identify who they are in that and who they want to be and what do they want and acknowledging what they want and that's a powerful thing at any age for any woman, any person. But we got to really see them hone in on what was important to them and how they were starting to take those next steps forward into becoming an adult and going and making a transition into a university, making choices towards a career, making choices towards where they want to live, if they want to travel, if they want to stay close to home. So helping them identify what was really important to them, what did they value, and who they wanted to become, what sort of leaders did they want to become, what kind of role models they could become, that they got to start to see that I can be this type of woman, I can be this person. So just even opening that door and those thoughts to what they can be was really powerful. And we saw so much change happen in the room. I'm thinking of a couple of them very specifically that just blossomed in the 12 weeks, or I think we had them for 18 weeks, using their voice more, expressing themselves, asking more questions, feeling more comfortable in the room with, having deeper conversations and opening up about them, having more vulnerable conversations, hearing each other's stories. And they all just commend them for all being present in that space and supporting each other so much. It was really, we had a wonderful community for those 18 weeks.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And just to build on the young women in Pakistan, we had someone reached out to us vis-a-vis under the sisterhood, and I think her whole thing was she wanted to be part of the team and and she helped us build the community. And so I think Amy referred to a short while ago that we've had people connecting us into communities, but Mohira was instrumental in that. A couple of things that stood out to me. First of all, I just want to like embarrass Amy for a second, was she held beautiful space. And I think it's really important when you are the executive director and you're facilitating and holding space for people that you hold it in a way, and especially if we're trying to create future sister leaders and sisterhoods, in a way that they feel like they can talk and there's no shame, or stigma attached to it. And you just held that space beautifully. You allowed these young women, I mean, a couple of them got really philosophical with us. And it was extraordinary to see their level of intelligence and connectedness. I mean, you were introducing new concepts to them. I mean, most of us don't think and go on that self-discovery journey and ask us about, like, our sense of self-awareness, and ask these prompts and these questions. And so it was very, for me, witnessing it in the room and you as the leader and guiding the space, it was pretty amazing. And then I think you referred to, and I know the two young women who sort of just blossomed, they opened up, they started sharing, they felt safe and more comfortable over time. And so that was to me, that was a really interesting, first step, and got us to create Sistergood. We were on the move for that. But I have to just say, it's really a testament to the way you held space. And I think also the program that we wrote, the way that we went in and said, listen, life's a journey, right? And so talk a little bit, can you be a little more specific about the journey of how you were thinking about the program, the 4 pillars? It would be great to share that.
Yeah, so well, we took the 4 pillars that Under the Sisterhood is founded on, which is self-discovery, self-care, self-expression, and sisterhood. And we apply that to Sistergood. So going into self-discovery, we spend 3 weeks asking some questions to dive into just where are you right now? Where are you in life? What's happening? Let's have a pulse on what's going on. Are you happy? Are you what habits are serving you? What habits aren't serving you? Let's check in. It's a full check-in, just like we go for a checkup to maybe a doctor. This is your time to do a checkup with your being. So we start with self-discovery, and from there we go into self-care. And self-care encompasses 8 areas. And so we dive into everything from our starting with our physical health, our mental and emotional well-being, our spiritual well-being, our social well-being, financial, environmental, and recreational. All of these parts are what add to our whole, and they all need our attention and nurturing and nourishment all the time, right? And sometimes it's easy for one of these or a few of these to get put on the back burner. We get caught up with life. And so how do we keep, again, a pulse on all these areas that they're so interconnected. So when one is out of whack, it affects the other parts of our lives. And in a very busy world, we've got to be intentional with creating time to take care of these aspects in our lives. And again, if one part is not in check, it really affects so much else, some of the other parts in our lives. So we go through 3 weeks of self-care, diving into all these areas. Then we move into self-expression, and this is, for me, a fun part, and it's deep work too. We dig deep in this too, and it actually does, go beyond the fun, creative part that I think of in self-expression, because we're really going into how are we showing up, and how are we relating to ourselves, how are we relating to other people. And whether that's family, friends, in work situations. And it really comes down to how we relate to ourselves first. That relationship with ourselves is so important. If that's not intact, then how can we have those kinds of relationships that are fulfilling and inspiring and, aligned in our lives? So we've got to how we speak to our own self, how we express ourselves in our own private environment is just as important as how we're expressing ourselves out in the world. And then we strengthen our voices too. We take time to how do you have communication? How do you want to express yourself? How do you get through maybe difficult conversations, or what is not being said that needs to be said? There's a lot that sometimes we leave on the table that, and in that space is really a lot of love, right? And so if we just express ourselves more and let people know how much they are loved and how much they're important in our lives. So it's all of these different aspects of our voice. And then the other parts of, our physical way that we like to express ourselves. Sometimes we do need to freshen something up and make a little change, and that can give us that extra spark, and how we feel, how we carry ourselves, how we show up as role models, how we show up as leaders, and how we're just overall feeling good, right? We want to feel good. And so that's our self-expression is. Yeah.
That. I love that. I love that. And of course, the sisterhood, we know it's coming into community. Amy, as you're saying this, I'm sitting here, I'm so inspired because it kind of doesn't matter what stage you're at in life. As you said, we have been serving women as young as 16, as in their 60s. I think that women, and we don't realize this, I think this is both the system, the society that we grow up in, that there's certain parameters. So we don't really go on this journey and look within. A lot of times we don't look within until our kids are out of the house, or, we have proper time and space, or we have a wake up call, some sort of health call, and it drives us to do that. So I think the programming, the fact that we're bringing this into different communities to give women this opportunity is just, I mean, it's really special because every woman should be doing this, but we don't. We're so busy doing, we're not busy being. So I'd love for you to share a little bit, like, what did you see? You said we're in Pakistan and Ghana and Liberia. I'd love to hear about the experience in Ghana.
Yeah, so the women in Ghana, a lot of them are working professionals. We had a lot of women that were nurses, that are entrepreneurs that have started their own businesses. A few women that were also in the NGO, nonprofit sector, and they were very much interested in, the deeper part of the self-discovery. I really felt them taking this time to understand themselves more and lean into what impact they wanted to continue to make in their communities. And so a lot of them have gone through college. Some of them were actually on the brink of going to college. So they are interested in their education. They're interested in how they can serve their communities and how they can support and serve each other as women. And that's a big part of our sisterhood component, is how do we support one another? How do we lift each other up? And, our world is coming around to realizing more and more that when one woman rises, we all rise, and there's not just one seat at the table, that this is all of us coming forward. And so that I felt the sisterhood aspect in that community very strong, and they're very connected, and we're still very connected with them. And they are as well in their own, locally in their own, on the ground in their own communities. And now we're taking that Ghana program into a leadership program. So we had four women start with mentors. They went through a mentorship program last year, and they had we had mentors from around the world. And then a couple of those ladies now have moved into our leadership program. And so we are working with them to be on site, local, on the ground facilitators of the Sistergood programs in Ghana and in the remote surrounding areas.
That's got to feel amazing. So much progress. I'm sitting here, like, just hearing it. It's so funny because, again, back to getting back and the doing, doing, doing. We've been building sisterhoods for good and sistergood. And I think that's just extraordinary. And again, I just want to say I applaud all the work you've been doing, because we're going to go on to Liberia in a second. But I think what's interesting, because I sit in as a mentor to these spaces, is the way that Amy is able to read a room and hold space is really understanding, meeting people where they are. And I think that's a beautiful quality. You should feel very good about that, really proud of that quality, because it feels like it's so humanitarian. It's like so big to think and be that type of person. And so, Ghana was different than Pakistan. The girls were young women in Pakistan, very sophisticated thinkers. Ghana were more working women, some going off to university, definitely, different. Everyone's coming from different times and spaces in their lives. And so I'm curious, share what, like, I know that Liberia, you're doing so much in that community. Share where it began and take us on the journey with Liberia.
Yeah, so we started with Liberia with our 12-week foundational program, which is our health and wellness 12-week series. And the women there, are not all of them have a device to be able to use. So, for example, in Ghana, virtual programming, everybody is at home or in their own personal space with their own phone or computer. In Liberia, these women are in a smaller village. They don't necessarily have a phone or a computer to log on to. So we partnered with a local pastor, and he opened up the church for them to gather every Saturday morning and bring them together with, and it was such a unique experience having them in this because we would have one chair in front of the camera. So every time a woman shares, she really is in the spotlight to be heard and seen. And this, I think, we both felt that impact on them of having that moment to express themselves, to really feel someone listen to them and someone care for them in this kind of way where we're asking these questions. And I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear what you think about this or how you're feeling. And I think also culturally, it may not be so common to open up about those feelings and to have those kinds of conversations. So to see them open up over that 12-week period of time too and become really vocal and really excited to share, they started to just jump up to the chair and want to come and share. So that was a really incredible experience with those women, totally different from Ghana and just as impactful in its own way. And then we got through the end of the 12 weeks and we asked them, what do you need? What do you want? And they all wanted to learn skills. And this is just part of our self-expression. It's part of that self-discovery. It's part of self-care. When we're doing something that we love and that we're interested in, that takes care of a lot of our mental, emotional well-being, right? Our spiritual well-being. We feel connected to a purpose. And so by providing our vocational training, they are feeling more and more connected to their purpose. They're learning these skills, and then we're going to help them build those into collaborative businesses. So currently the program includes hairdressing, culinary skills, and they call it tailoring, but sewing, seamstress work. And then they're learning English and math along the way that can eventually develop into entrepreneurial courses and additional business type courses to help support them as they build these skills into something that becomes a livelihood where they can be supporting their families.
Mm. So much to be proud of, right? I mean, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, so much to be proud of. I want to step back for a second. You referenced building or creating that seat at the table. And I think what has been very interesting in the Liberia situation is because they're all gathered in one spot and having that chair. So they sit in rows and then each one takes their turn and comes up. And Amy asks a prompt again, witnessing them where they are, holding space for them in a very safe container and having them share. And I am only going to further emphasize the beauty, as you did mention this, but I think one of the things about Under the Sisterhood is it's all about seeing, hearing, acknowledging, valuing, and celebrating women. And so by having them have that chair, and that just happened to be, it happened organically. Winston, the pastor, put it there. And so they sit in front of the computer and they are literally, it's their time in the spotlight. It's their time to be seen, to be heard, to be celebrated, acknowledged. And, what I witnessed from a mentor perspective is Amy holding this beautiful safe space and them wanting to open up more and more. And when the time came and the 12 weeks were over, the pastor was like, they miss you. They want to keep this going. And so we're like, Amy and I are like, so Amy continued to hold the space every weekend and then started asking more organic questions at that time, which led to you creating this programming. And I really want to take a moment because it is International Women's Day. It's Women's History Month. I really want to take a moment to celebrate Amy Danielson Paul, to celebrate our Amy, the Executive Director at Sistergood, who has really single-handedly built out this programming, seeing needs, working with Winston, working with myself. How can we do better? How can we fill their unmet needs? What can we do to create a vibrant community? What can we do to meet them where they are? Amy said, this community, Elizabeth, is different than the other community. Let's look at how we can do what for what community. And even I know as you built out your leadership programming, what's been fascinating is the different levels of messaging according to the communities. It's understanding who you're reaching. And so I think, I just want to applaud you and say, congratulations. You should feel so proud. I mean, what an incredible accomplishment. And these women love you and we love you. You're doing an amazing job. So, but I want to continue because there's lots going on with Sistergood. And I think, I guess what I want to know, Amy, is like, I know the origin, like, how are you feeling about leading it? What's going through your head and how do you imagine as you build out this programming? What is sort of your current thinking? How are you thinking a little of the future? What is your dream? What is your dream for Sistergood?
Great question. Um, well, this program excites me so much. It is just like it just flows and pours out of me putting these programs together and working with the leadership program, working with the vocational program, and um, I really look at what's the greater purpose of doing something. So we're not just ending with a 3-month vocational program of upskilling. Where do we take it from here? There's always another step. Where do we guide them from this point forward? And so that's what also gets me really excited is, what are we building towards and what are we building on? What foundation are we laying down? And then what's next? So for what's next for Liberia is, as I mentioned a while ago, helping them create these collaborative businesses. And the key word in that is collaborative, because what we are all about in our under the sisterhood and sistergood is building this sisterhood, the community of women that support one another. So as they are building their skills, and it's a small village, if they're all wanting to start businesses, then they're trying to, vie for those clients for that business. And so instead of creating that competition that we don't need or want, we're going to help them work together. And so in each of these sectors, if it's culinary, that they're catering together, they are baking together, they're providing for the village together. And when it comes to the making products, sewing, and the other products that they're making, then we have a shop together. We have an Etsy store. We are helping them get seen and exposure to other people around the world, and also in their local markets. It's just like a shop. They can take their shifts, and everybody has a responsibility and a place where they get to show up and they get to bring their skills to that space. And the same thing with the hairdressing. So where they get to share the clients and share the profits in this. So what I'm excited about is that we're helping them build out a livelihood. And what I also feel really good about this is that the local teachers were able to provide them a salary as well. And our manager, Winston, is managing the program. So we are really helping them all work together to build something that benefits them, their families, their community. And it's been growing, and it's just naturally more and more women are getting involved. And so as we grow and as we get bigger, we can continue to have this vocational training ongoing, bring more women in, and as they get to a certain point, they can start to be on the business side of things. And so I see this being really successful. We have a great team on the ground there, as you know, and so that a large part of this being as successful as it is them being so committed to it, to the women showing up, the teachers showing up, and all of this together is that synergy that you dream about. These are the kinds of teams that you want to be working with when everybody is invested and committed and dedicated to the end goal. So that's what we have on Liberia.
I love that. Can I just interject for a second? Again,
Yeah.
congratulations. It's just I'm sitting here in goosebumps because it is a vision. I think going back to what you said early, everything's been unfolding organically, but I think the biggest reason is we have been listening. and we've been thinking of other ways to serve them, other ideas, other solutions. We've been listening to what their needs are. And I think that again, you hearing them in those spaces and then saying, Elizabeth, we should be doing this. And we're like, okay, how do you do it? How do we put this together? And then we did get, we have to admit this. First of all, I want to give a huge, huge, huge kudos to one of our board members, Dr. Barbara Enswa. She joined the board, and we have two missions on the board. One is to fundraise, the other is to bring us into communities. And Dr. Enswa has her own non-for-profit, so she can't fundraise for us. But she said, I can get you into communities. So she brought us into both Ghana and Liberia. And she sits in these rooms with Amy and myself. She's been extraordinary. I think the reason why I wanted to acknowledge her and Winston is sometimes, and Trish, is sometimes you just get lucky. I mean, we got lucky. We connected with some people with really big hearts and wanting to affect change. And so, so I'm putting that in there because I think that could be in part as you move on, as you're seeing the plans. How are you feeling about that and the plan and how you're imagining the future?
Yeah, absolutely. We had no idea that there were other people and parts that were wanting a vocational training program. It just happened that Trisha was building out a space, an actual building for this. And then we came in and we said, well, we can provide some of the funding for all of the materials that are needed and the resources to get it going. So it did unfold so naturally and so wonderfully in that collaboration. And now we've joined forces and we're working towards continuing this throughout 2025.
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to add to that, Amy, because as I understand it, we provide more than resources. You went and I was in the room when you said, what do you need? How can we help? And they talked about vocational training. And we went and we asked them, well, what would they like to do? And you had asked them, let's come up with 3 things we can get fun training for. And so you actually worked with Winston to bring in the teachers and everything. So talk a little bit, because I think it's really important. We are actually implementing the programming with them.
Yeah, so the women go to each of these classes twice a week, and then they have their English and math twice a week as well. So some of the women cross over to other departments, and some of them have just chosen the one that they want to focus on. So they're going twice a week. We have the funding right now for 3 months. So this month we're fundraising again to keep this going, and I believe we'll get there. We have such great momentum right now that we have to find a way to keep the programming going. So it's twice a week for 3 months, and from here, then they will continue. And then at the right time, we'll start to figure out the business side of it. How do we help them build that business?
And how are you so if we leave Liberia at the door for the moment and we
Mhm.
just think about you as the executive director of Sistergood, this is your baby. How are you, what's your dream? Put your dream out there. What do you want for this? You know?
Yeah, so I would love for us to continue continue curating programs in each community. I think that's really important to continue, is that each community is really unique based on where they're located, what's happening in their current lives, and in the places, the countries, the cities they're living in. So it's still curated to what they need. But I really foresee this being where we have sisterhood leaders all over the world facilitating, running the programs, giving back to their communities, where we're working with other local organizations. We're providing resources for young girls, for the youth, for so that as they grow up, they can also become part of the sisterhood community, that they know they have a community supporting them, and that are bringing forward the tools, the health and the wellness education, the vocational opportunities, the leadership opportunities. I would love to be able to give out scholarships for people for some of these women that are either going back to school, or they are, graduating and ready to go to university. And so being able to continue to provide education on all fronts, have guest speakers come through and from around the world to bring more exposure and bring more inspiration to them. They can hear more stories of women around the world. How have other women succeeded in their careers? How have they succeeded in their leadership roles? How have they grown as women? And so I really feel it growing globally more and more, but we have on-site, on the ground facilitators that are working with us and that are in touch with the local communities and are available to be in person. I love our virtual programming too. We have global reunions where we bring all the women together. So one big dream is to have all the women come forward on a Zoom, and we are in the same room together virtually to celebrate one another and meet each other. And then we take that to in-person sisterhood retreats. That would be, incredible too. I can keep going here.
You're doing great. I am kind of curious and I love that. I love it. I love it. I love getting the facilitators curious because I know we've added vocational on, but you at the core is our 12-week because it's almost like you need that foundationally, right? Is that what you're
Right.
saying?
Right. Yeah. So we started with that 12 weeks as that was really what we envisioned was bringing that 12-week series. What we learned was at the end of 12 weeks, the women wanted more and they needed more. And after 3 months of doing self-development work, we know it doesn't stop there. It's an ever-going process. And so how do we keep that going? How do we keep building on that foundational program? So all of the programs around the world start with those 4 pillars, and then we branch out and we build from there to create something that's really specific to the needs in their community. And how do we build out having them become part of the leadership program to become facilitators? So yeah.
I love it. It's evergreen. It's beautiful. It's sisterhood, if you
Yeah.
will. It's building sisterhoods for good. I just feel it feels so good. I just want to say, again, I applaud you. Thank you for all the work you're doing to make this happen. The magic you bring into the spaces, you're amazing. I have one last question as we finish getting under the hood with you. This is your platform today to give a message to women of all ages, of all backgrounds, of all cultures. What do you want to say to them, Amy?
Mm.
You're allowed to pause. You can pause.
Okay. Um,
It's big. It's a big question, but you've had a lot of big answers today.
I mean, there's so much, right, that comes flooding comes forward that I would want to say. And um, I'm going to come back to listen to your heart. And I think everything kind of stems from listening to your heart because we do live in a world of a lot of noise and there's a lot of distractions. And as you said, we end up doing more than being. But if we can sit with what's in our heart and just be with that, and that's not always easy, but if we can be there with all the emotions and all the inspirations and all the dreams and all the ideas and all the thoughts and allow ourselves to really listen deeply, we find our own answers and our inner wisdom comes forward. And I think in that, we start to create our world that we love living inside. And if we love living in our world, then we start to create a world that everybody else loves to live into.
Mm, that is beautiful. I'm really touched. It's really resonating with me. I know that resonating is an overused word, but anyway, thank you, Amy. Thank you so much. And again, congratulations. It's International Women's Day, and I celebrate you big
Thank
time.
you. I celebrate you too. This was really fun. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Under the Sisterhood. If you haven't already, please give us a quick rating and review on Apple or Spotify. And make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn so you can hear from more amazing women. This podcast is created and hosted by Under the Sisterhood LLC and Elizabeth Elfenbein, produced by Elizabeth Elfenbein and Matt Butler, and edited by Matt Butler. The music is by Ayla Schaefer. Her song, Rose.